Along with The Last Airbender and Arthur, Kim Possible is one of my favorite shows from childhood. It has everything you'd want. High-stakes action, thrilling adventure, hysterical comedy, grounded slice of life, and gentle romance. If you're somehow unaware, Kim Possible is a teenage superhero for hire, except her services are free. You got a problem, she's got your back. At her side is the lovable, unstoppable Ron Stoppable, her best friend since kindergarten. This show is entirely built on her type A personality and his type B personality. She's a superhero cheerleader and has fantastic grades despite her often tardy record. He's a laid-back slacker who doesn't care much for school, but he does put time and effort into things he considers important. Food, video games, and his relationship with Kim Possible. Even though they're foils, their names and relationship are quite harmonic. Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable. Their full names are both 4 syllables long. Putting their names together just rolls off the tongue so nicely. They just complement each other so well. Kim inspires Ron to have courage and ambition, while he keeps her stressed down and convinces her to stop and smell the roses. They just wouldn't be complete without one another. When the fantastic show The Drama ended, I found myself devastated. One of my biggest problems with stories is when they tease a will they or won't they couple for the entire series, but when they finally get together, the story ends. We finally got to see our power couple hook up for real. Then the show's over? My younger self was not pleased. I remember being upset about it for weeks afterwards, just completely bummed out. This series was actually one of the first times I indulged in fanfiction, which I really ought to do a video on at a certain point. Now, despite the qualities of the stories I read, I still long to see further adventures on my friends and where their relationship went. I was eventually rewarded with a gripping 4th season, with a finale I could finally walk away from with a smile. I found myself thinking about the show's spectacular finish recently, which has me looking at older episodes. I finally know why the show sticks around in my head, despite not being on air for so long. One of the things that separates this show from others is its grounded realism. I know that's funny considering the fantastic nature of the show, but hear me out. Let's look at the second episode in the series, Tick Tick Tick. Shouts out to the homie Lauren for the recommendation. In its opening moments, Kim is sprinting through school with no regard for who gets in her way, slamming people into walls and knocking them over. When she gets caught and apprehended for detention, she remarks that cheerleaders don't get detention. Playing into the trap that her position gets her out of rules that everyone else has to abide to. Although she eventually grows out of this backwards thinking, the fact that she went through this ordeal proves that despite her immense competence, she too has flaws. I love that scene when she's in detention and sees the clock speeding up. I initially thought we would get a cut of her walking out and saying, hey, detention isn't so bad. But nope, turns out the clock just happens to do that sometimes. Kim puts her head to the desk like so many of us have, wondering why time won't speed up for her when we're doing something unpleasant. Ron and Rufus manage to bail her out through misdirection, but Kim doesn't get off so easily. She still winds up in detention by the end. Our superhero hotshot hero, what the fuck was that line? Our superhero hotshot still makes mistakes and gets into trouble. She's a perfect role model too. Growing up alongside Kim made me realize that as she broke stereotypes as a woman and became an unstoppable hero, I too could break stereotypes and be the best I can be. She can do anything, so we can too. Tick 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 is actually a pretty competent episode, despite being so early on in the show's life. Just look at how fun Kim and Ron's personal banter is. She's mad at him for delaying her from turning in her paper on time, but she's still amused at her best friend's antics. Now, I admit to bias because I grew up watching these characters, but every interaction between the two is just exploding with charm. It's good to see that their interactions haven't lost any spark just because I got older. Even the action scenes in Kim Possible is used for character development. For example, let's look at this shark set piece. Kim goes in, Ron distracts, Kim goes in. This combination proves to be so effective that it took time-traveling shenanigans to break them apart. Only after their relationship was shattered was it possible for Shigo to take over the world. But more on that later. Kim has this unstoppable drive to make sure her best friend stays alive, and Ron has complete faith in her ability to do so, and that gives him the courage to do whatever it takes for them to succeed. Besides that, Ron has 4 major assets that give him an incredible clutch factor. One is his eccentric personality that leads him to thinking of bizarre solutions to deadly problems. And Tick Tick Tick's climax, the so-called bumbling buffoon, is the only one to think of a solution to defusing the explosive stuck to Kim's face. A delicate drop of hot sauce. The second is his mobility. The years of existence he spent running away from Kim's enemies leads to him having fuck me. Fuck me, man. The second is his mobility. The years of existence he spent running away from Kim's enemies leads to him having a degree of agility that's almost unmatched. The third is his little buddy Rufus. This dynamic duo is actually a terrifying trio. Rufus has clutched so many situations with his jaw-dropping speed and biting power. Even in Tick, 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 we see Ron calmly use Rufus as bait against a grown-ass man, and Rufus gets away with ease. The final element of clutch is Ron's mystical monkey power, which he eventually becomes a master at. Even though the show is called Kim Possible, Team Possible just wouldn't exist without Ron's presence. Their friendship is what glues this show together. Let's take a quick glance at A Stitch in Time, an episode that had their friendship in jeopardy. Yo, real quick, let's take a quick look at A Stitch in Time's opening sequence. It's danked in a bitch, bro. Yo, let's go. The two of them are looking forward to another semester of school with high hats. After all, they have every class together and it'll be like their preschool days. But once they get to Ron's house, they find out he's moving. The tragedy strikes too soon, as all tragedies do, leaving the duo potentially estranged. After a heartbreaking goodbye, Ron finds himself halfway across the world, finally separated from his inseparable, decade-old friend. He copes with this change by constantly calling Kim, though she doesn't mind too much and misses him as well. Despite this great distance between them, Ron is as loyal as ever in this film, following Kim through air, land, and water, just to attend missions alongside her. Despite arriving late for at least 2 of these missions, he still tries, and even manages to get there in time when it counted. The film really tugs on the heartstrings when we see their first day of preschool together, only now featuring Kid Draken, Golf Ball Fuckboy, and Monkey Fist. Despite their villainous interference with time, Kim and Ron's friendship proves too powerful. Even as a kid, Ron works up the courage to stand up against 3 scary bullies for a total stranger, and little Kim's savage and raw desire to protect her new friend proves unbeatable. We can infer from this that their friendship is a common theme across entirely separate timelines, which is obviously adorable. The show is constantly challenging expectations, and one of the funnier times this happens is when Ron's preteen self meets his dorky present self. Usually in fiction, meeting your older self results in meeting a more badass, more competent you. While Ron's younger self eventually acknowledges his future self's bravery, most of his future self's screen time leaves him as the butt of everyone's jokes, including his younger self. This is but one of the many times the reversal of expectations is hysterical and keeps the show feeling fresh despite its age. At the film's climax, we see Ron devastated with the loss of his favorite restaurant, Buono Nacho. But when he finds out Shigo broke him and Kim up, this fuels his rage so greatly, he's able to effortlessly defeat Draken, whom both Kim and a 20 years older Monique had trouble against. This moment featured Ron at his most clutch, prior to the series finale, of course. Speaking of Shigo, her arc in this film is worth looking at. Shigo is one of the only truly competent villains in the series, and this movie does a lot to convey that. She regularly takes Kim down alone or even to standstills, and thinks of most things before even the genius Draken can. Her combination of smarts and brutality makes her the only real candidate for world domination. The only reason why she follows the Blue Dead around is because, whether she knew it or not early on, she loves him. When Rufus' future descendant, Rufus 3000, refers to the unseen villain as the Supreme One, she and undoubtedly many people viewing this thought that the Supreme One was Draken, or at least Monkey Fist. But nope, it was Shigo all along. Rufus 3000 declares it was obvious, and although it is in hindsight, Kim says she thought that the whole world domination angle seemed more like a guy thing. This sexist remark is funny, but also sheds some light on societal expectations. Kim seems to have assumed that the females lack the kind of ambition and arrogance that you need for world domination, and it goes to show that sexism affects every party involved, even those who may otherwise think it doesn't. One thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that we know by the series finale that Shigo has feelings for Draken. And yet, by the end of this film, in this alternate timeline, she keeps him as her pet and even latches a shock bracelet around his throat. Despite this cruelty, she still considers his opinion in important matters and seems to have lightened up immensely. The short interaction between her present and future self further illustrates this. Past Shigo is as straight to the point and humorless as ever, while her future self is much more eccentric and erratic. Her past self advocates simple solutions to problems. For example, killing Kim as a kid so she doesn't grow up to be such a pain in her ass. But her future self is much more vulnerable to falling victim to petty schemes just because it's more interesting. She became so much more like Draken, I doubt she even realized it. The idea that the two of them may still be dating even in this timeline is as amusing as it is disturbing and sweet. Draken would always vocally discredit Shigo, but he would never physically abuse her as she does him. I suppose future Shigo's love burns far too brightly for most men. The contrast between the power dynamics between both versions of the couple is fascinating, despite the limited screen time of their future counterparts. A Stitch in Time is only an hour long, but it crammed in so much content with swift pacing that the whole thing ends before you even know it. If you missed this show, give it a rewatch, and you'll be shocked by how well it holds up. I hope you guys enjoyed my first solo video. It'll be the first of many. Let me know what you think of this setup, and if you have any advice. I produced this all on my phone, so don't expect the usual pizzazz. As you may know, I typically do videos with my Spaceline crew, but because those fantastic productions can take a while to crank out, I decided to make smaller videos on my own channel. Between my self-produced videos and the Spaceline ones, I'm aiming to have one video done a week. Now, if you don't know already, I've made a book called Nina and Minerva. It's a tale about two women from opposing factions who fall in love after an alien invasion. It's somewhat of a cross between Romeo and Juliet and The Last of Us. It's a tale that's as funny as it is horrifying, complete with ball-busting action and fulfilling romance. Now, I had a car accident at the beginning of the year while I was doing Uber. As a result, I'm still catching up on bills and trying to get a new car. Money's really tight right now, and at the pace I'm going, I doubt I'll be able to release the book this year. This is why I need your help. I'm starting a Patreon account to get the funds needed to get this book out. Whatever you can spare will be most appreciated. I want to make my lifelong dream of publishing a novel come true as soon as possible, and I just can't do it without your help. I'll have a link to the Patreon below. Anything you can spare would be amazing. So that'll do it for the first video. Let me know what you want me to review next, and I'll consider analyzing it. If you want to holler at me, follow me on Twitter or find me on Facebook. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. I cannot put enough emphasis on sharing the video, because even if you don't want to put money into the Patreon account, someone else might want to, and every dollar counts. I've been writing my entire life, and I'm confident to say that Nina and Minerva is my opus. I want you guys to read it as soon as possible. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day.